All right, everybody, welcome back. So we have text fields now, so it's time to start building some buttons. And so we're going to need a login button for starters at least. And so we have built our own app text field, and so it probably won't surprise you that we are also going to build our own app button that is kind of unique to our application. And so in our widgets, let's create a new widget called button.dart. And also let's come up to styles and create a file in there called buttons.dart. So plural there, singular in widgets. So in our widgets button.dart, this, just like the text field, is just a widget. Everything's a widget, so it's app button. So we'll just call it that to distinguish it from a button from the Flutter framework. So it's a stateless widget, and we'll need a build method. All right, so you can be on either an iOS or an Android emulator for this video. It doesn't matter because we're going to build our own button from a container. So let's return the container. We'll give it a height. And you know what? Let's come up here to our styles and create a button height style. So styles button, let's create our class. So it'll be an abstract class. And we'll put the button styles in here. And so this will be static double get button height. And we'll return, let's start with 50 to see how that looks. All right, so let's go back into our button widgets button and then call our height with button styles. We'll have to import that, button height. All right, then for a width, I want to do media query.of context.size.width. And for a decoration, we'll do a box decoration. Color, so we'll do app colors. Let me import that. Let's do light blue for now. And a border radius, which will be border radius circular, and we'll call on our base styles. So we'll need to import that. And so we'll use our border radius property again. And let's create a shadow here as well. Actually, let's just put it on the screen first. So now we have our app button. If we come back to login, after app text field, let's bring in an app button. And there's no input properties yet, but you can see that's what it's looking like. Not too bad. I do probably want it to line up with the text field, and so there's some padding there. In our text fields, we created text box horizontal spacing, which is 25, and text box vertical, which is kind of the spaces in between. We probably don't want that in our text field styles exclusively because we want all elements to kind of be evenly spaced up and down, side to side. So that probably would be better off in our base. So let's copy it and put this in our base styles. And let's rename it to list field horizontal and list field vertical. And then in our text styles, rather than leaving those hard-coded, we don't need to change them, but we can just call on our base styles. We can call the list field horizontal, and the base styles would be list field vertical. That just keeps everything intact. That's fine. So then in our button, let's wrap this container. Oops, let's to do that, meant to wrap with padding. And then for our padding, we can do our list view horizontal padding, our list view vertical padding, but why don't I create myself a shortcut, because it seems like we're going to be calling those values a lot. So maybe if we revisit styles base, we revisit this, let's do a static edge insets, get list padding, and for that we'll just return edge insets.symmetric. I'm going to bring in material or Cupertino. There we go. And the horizontal, we'll just reference this here. So we'll do the list field horizontal. And then for the vertical, we'll just reference the list field vertical. So still our actual value is only in one spot, but we just create a reference there. So with that in place, we'll come back to button.dart. And then for padding, let me do base styles list padding. That just keeps it a lot shorter. And there we go. We can see our buttons start to adjust immediately. And we're going to want text on that button. So let's do a child. We'll do a center. Center will have a child, and we'll do text. And we'll say login. And that text doesn't look all that great, so we probably need a text style just for that. So let's go to styles text and create a text style for our buttons. So we'll do static text style. Whoa. One finger off on the keyboard. Text style. Still not doing too hot. Get, and let's call it button text. Let's call it button text light, because if we do different color buttons on in our app, we might need some for the lighter buttons and some for the darker buttons. So this will be a lighter text. And for that, we'll return, I'm just going to copy body, or just copy this part here, the Roboto. And I'm going to adjust the color to white. We can leave the font size as is for now, and let's do font weight. Let's do a bold, so we'll do font weight. Bold. Maybe I'll go 17 on the font size there. All right, so coming back to widgets button, I can add a style to this now, and we can bring in text styles and say button text light. And there we go. That looks pretty good. All right, lastly, I do want to just add a little bit of a shadow to this button. And I'm thinking that that shadow, we may want to apply it throughout the application to buttons. I don't think we need it on the text field, but we might want to do it on some of the cards. And so I think it would be a good candidate to put in base styles. So I'm going to go to Styles Base. And I'm going to create the box shadow there. So it's a static list of type box shadow. And it's a get, and we'll call it box shadow. And we'll return, we'll put it in brackets, we'll put a semicolon at the end, and we'll return a box shadow with a color. And let's use our dark gray. So we'll import app colors, we'll bring in dark gray. We'll do it with opacity. Let's just say 0.5. We'll offset it with an offset widget of 1.0 and 2.0. So this is X and Y. So it drops down twice as far as it goes to the right. And then a blur radius of 2. And let me just spell that correctly, box shadow. We'll save that. All right, so then if I go back to widgets button and I say box shadow, I can apply base styles box shadow, and we can reuse that shadow. I'm going to save it. And so it's pretty subtle, but it makes it look like it has some elevation, and we can reuse that box style throughout the application. So our button looks pretty good, but it is hard-coded. It's stuck at this one color, light blue. It's stuck with the text, and this text style here is always going to be button text light, so that won't do for a reusable widget. So first of all, I think we want to be able to pass in the text. That seems pretty obvious. So let's come up to the top and let's create a string of button text. And we're going to need a constructor, so app button. And we'll make that required. All right, put a semicolon there, make that happy. And we will replace login with button text. And so our login does not have button text, so we can add login and hit save. All right, then so going back to our button, so we're probably going to want to have different types of buttons. And so I think an enum would work well for that right at the bottom of this. So after the class, I'm going to add an enum called button type. And in here we can just create the kinds of buttons that we want to be able to call. So we'll have a light blue, that'll be this one. And we'll have a straw. We'll have a light gray. These are just the colors that we have in our app. We'll have a dark gray. We'll have a dark blue. That should be good. And so the color here is going to need to adapt to these. The text style might need to adapt to those as well. So I think what might work well is inside of our build, we should do a switch. So we'll do a switch. And what do we want to switch on? So let's pass in the button type. That will be a parameter. Now, we won't make it a required parameter. So we'll have a default button. If you call the app button, you do have to put in the text that you want on it. But if you don't give it a button type, it will just come out a certain way. So we'll switch on that button type. So we'll open curly braces, we'll build a case, and we can say button type straw. And so when they ask for a straw button, we'll give them that textiles button text light. And we'll give them app colors of straw. And I'm assigning variables here that I haven't created. Silly me. So let's create a text style that is font style and a color that is button color. And before I forget, let's do button color right there and font style right here. And we need to break that case. All right. So we do want a default. So let's put that now, and then let's just do this here. Let's say if you don't put anything, we'll just give you this light blue color that we have already on the emulator. Like that, and we're going to break our case, even in the default case. All right, so we've got straw here, we've got a default. Let's put some more in between. So I'm going to copy case down here to break, and I'm going to paste in, I'm going to say light blue, light gray, dark gray. So we'll come back here and change this straw to light blue. We'll change the color to light blue. We'll leave this button text as is for now. If we only have text light, we'll check them out, see how they look, and see if we need to come up with a dark theme. So let's see, dark blue, and we just want app color to be dark blue. Light gray, and the app color will be light gray. This will be dark gray, and we'll make that app color dark gray. And that should be all set. So if we go over to login, we have this app button here that we're calling, and we're not passing in the second parameter, which is button type. There we go. So we want to bring in button type, and then we should be able to shift the color of the button by any one we select. Like that. Okay, that looks good, pretty good. Now the only thing I saw there is the light gray is very light, and you can't really make this out. Everything else looks pretty good with the white. So let's just fix that before we wrap this up. So if we go to textiles, we've got button text light. Let's copy it. We'll create button text dark. And that one will make our app colors dark gray. And so if we go to widget button, we have our switch here, and we can dictate what goes with what. So we're going to change the light gray to button text dark, like we have here, and that looks much better. Now I don't like that color on the button, so I'm going to go back to login, and I like the light blue that we had in the first place. Beautiful. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. We now have a reusable button that we can change the color for and call out our app with this one line of code, which is a wonderful thing. Next time we're going to come back and we're going to complete the rest of this interface with some social media buttons, which will be smaller than the main login button, and then a link to the sign up in case that you are not already registered and you want to sign up instead of log in. So that'll be next time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you then.